Hey world, it's Austin. Look, I've got you on my phone today, so you're a moving target. I hope this is okay. I wanted to create some videos this week because my book is coming out on Saturday, and it's okay, I gotta find my book. Hold on. Here's my book. It's called Transforming the Bible and the Lives of Transgender Christians, and it's coming out on Saturday. And so I thought, since I've got the transgender and Christian video going up on Wednesday, and the book's coming out on Saturday, I was like, why not just make a video for every day of the week until the book comes out? That'd be a cool thing, right? So we're gonna try it. So yeah, book coming out, and in the theme of books coming out, I thought I would introduce you to my bookshelves. For the last, wow, it's been like 3 years or so now that I've been making trans and Christian videos. I've been recording in front of these bookshelves. There's one there, and there's a new one behind you over there. And so I thought I would do a book tour because people have been asking what's on your bookshelves, and I thought this might be a good time to do that. So let's do it. So we'll start out with the books over here. This is sort of like my fun shelf. We start out here with books about farming and books about animals and books about cooking and baking. And then down here I've got sort of like my nonfiction shelf. So like biographies that I really like. That book up there is one I definitely recommend. So you want to talk about race. I just finished that one, and it's so good, and it's so, it's just really digestible, and it's really helpful in figuring out how to talk about things in a helpful and, what's the word I want? In a way that can actually foster conversation. And so I'd recommend it for sure. I've got some movies over on the end there because even though Netflix exists, sometimes you just really want to watch Tarzan, and it's not on Netflix. Then down here I've got like my other fun books, lots of Arthurian legends, lots of Mark Twain, Shakespeare, good stuff there. So yeah, books that I sometimes want to just read for fun. So this is the bookshelf that you actually are here to find out more about. This is my religion bookshelf, essentially. So I'm going to show you a couple things on here. This is sort of my Bible shelf. These ones here, let's see, Concordia, Confessions, Daily Prayer, and the Self-Study Bible. These three my dad gave to me, and they're all from the Concordia Press, and so they're like a little bit more conservative than I tend to be, but my dad gave them to me, so I love them. This is my hymnal from my church, and let's see, so we've got a bunch of different Bibles. We've got the Jewish Study Bible, which is what we think of as like the Old Testament, but we've got a Jewish sort of perspective on all of it. And then to complement it, I've got the Jewish Annotated New Testament, which is really, really helpful. These two go really well together, especially for Christian folks who want to figure out how to not be anti-Semitic by accident, because that happens a lot. So those two are definitely good resources. This is my African Heritage Study Bible, which I got because I wanted like something that provided a little bit more commentary on like seeing things through a different lens, through the lens of African and African American folks. And so I'm planning to get more commentaries that will work for that, but for now the footnotes are doing a good job for me. This is I was going to say this is my first ever Bible, but it's not. My first ever Bible is hiding back here. Oh, let's see if I can get a hold of it. Here we go. This is actually my first ever Bible. And if you grew up in a sort of a non-denom or evangelical situation or church, this Bible might be familiar to you. I don't use it too much anymore, obviously, because it's way back here, but I keep it because, you know, it's got sentimental value. So this was the second Bible that this one here is the second Bible that I ever got, and I got it when I was baptized, when I was 21. So yeah, then I've got, these are sort of like my world religion books, lots of stuff from sort of a Buddhist lens, and a Jewish lens too. Let's see, what should I pick out of here? These are all really good. Anything by Karen Armstrong, I'm a big fan of. She's a major scholar of religion and of sacred texts. She was in training to become a nun in the Catholic Church, and then eventually left, and now she's a biblical scholar and a scholar of religion, and everything she writes is amazing. These are all of my Jewish books. So this is the Siddur, which is the prayer book from the conservative United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, which is the one I'm most familiar with. And then these are all sort of my Jewish books. They're all really great. Let's see. One that I'd pick out here, this one here, is again a really helpful one. So this is Preaching the Gospels Without Blaming the Jews, which would be easy, you'd think, except for it's not, because of some of the ways that the Gospels are written. But this one's really helpful because it's divided up in lectionary passages. So if your church follows the Revised Common Lectionary, this is just like split up just like you would need it to be so that you can find your passage easily. Then these are sort of my Old Testament theologian friends. My favorite guy, of course, is Abraham Joshua Heschel, and so I've got a lot of him, not as much as I would like. If you want to start with Heschel, I definitely recommend The Sabbath. It's a little teeny book, and he just got such a poetic way of writing, and I don't know, it kind of like, it takes the stuff that is in my head and makes it stick in my heart better, so that's why I like him. Then you've just got some basic theology readers, short history of Christianity, no big deal. Then you've got my modern theologians here. Well, sort of modern. We got Augustine over on the side there and Bonhoeffer. But then you've got some of the more modern ones. A couple of these I haven't read yet. These two are actually on my to-read list right now. I haven't gotten to them yet. Let's see, what else have we got here? And then we've got, over here I've got sort of my... sort of like more looking at theology through a racial lens and like looking at things. So God of the Oppressed by James Cone is sort of the main text for Black theology right now, and like but it's like specifically from a male point of view, right? So then I've also got Womanist Midrash by Will Gaffney, which is amazing, and these two are like if you need to start out in Black theology, you couldn't do better than these two books. This one is also one that I'd call out. Battered Love by Renita Weems is really helpful for folks that are having trouble with the parts of the Old Testament where God is like angry and often portrayed as sort of abusive, and Renita Weems talks about that and like how we might understand that better, and I definitely recommend that one. Then I've got these 5 books here are all N.T. Wright, as much as I bash on N.T. Wright recently for some of his transphobic comments. He's also a really good theologian, so I appreciate some of the stuff that he's written. These 5 books were actually all given to me by my friend John, who just died recently, and so part of having them here on my bookshelf makes me remember him and feel closer to him, and so I appreciate having them even when I'm not using them as reference. These are all of my language books. So you got your classic, let's see, Hebrew, and then a couple of Greek ones over here on the side, and then one Akkadian one, because sometimes when you're studying biblical Hebrew, you want to look back and see where the language came from. And Akkadian is one of the languages that predated Hebrew and can be really helpful. And then down here, this is what you guys are here for. Down here I've got all of my queer theology books. So this one's already sitting out. This is Omnigender by Virginia Ramsey Mollenkott, and it's kind of one of the staples of gender diverse theology. And it's a multi-religious, it says trans-religious approach, and they mean that like trans-religious like trans-related, but also trans like many different religions. It's really interesting. And then you've got Transgendered by Justin Tanis, which is like the sort of the foundational trans-specific text when it comes to biblical texts and also community-related information for different denominations. And it's a huge resource that I always recommend to people, but the problem is that it's out of print now and really hard to get. And so if you ever find a copy of that, for goodness sake, pick it up, because it's hard to find. Then you've got, let's see, this is Retreating Forward by Reverend David Weekly, and that's all about leading trans retreats. Then you've got, this is a DVD, actually, it's not even a book, but it's good old Peterson Toscano's DVD, where he reinterprets stories from the Bible about gender nonconforming people, which is really fun. You got Your Queer Virtue by Elizabeth Edmond, which I just finished, and it's a really interesting book. Reverend Edmond, we disagree about some things, because everybody does, but in general, I find it really, really helpful to have a book that says, you know what, LGBTQ folks, they know things that Christianity could benefit from, and I really appreciate that. This one, Transformations, is Marcella, is it Arthouse Reed or Arthouse Reed? I can never say. But Marcella is a author of a lot of different trans theology books, and this is just one. But it's a little bit heavier to get into if you haven't read a lot, but it's still really interesting and really a good way to continue conversations. This is an easy one. This is A Brief Guide to Ministry with LGBTQIA Youth, and I recommend this one to any ministry professional. You just have to have this on your bookshelf. If you don't, you're just going to be at a loss. It's going to be so bad. So, make sure you get this because it covers all the basics and is a really good starting point. Let's see here. This one I haven't actually read yet. I just got Personal Stories of LGBTQ Discovery. This just came up, so I haven't read that one, so I can't recommend it yet, but hopefully I will. This is Prayers from the Edge. This is by Generous Space Community. They collected a bunch of prayers from LGBTQ folks, and it's really cool. I hacked with my naming ceremony in there, actually. So if you go to Generous Space, I think it's .ca for Canada, or if you just Google Generous Space Community, you'll find them. Then you've got Peculiar Faith, which is, again, it's kind of a heavy book to get into, but it's got some really interesting thoughts. And then one more that I haven't read, but I'm going to shortly, Beyond the Binary God, or Beyond a Binary God. And I am interested in reading this one, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So, soon. All right, and then the last bookshelf is over here. This is all my trans-related stuff, going from Trans Studies Reader, which is a bunch of different little pieces of things that are really important for us to know about as part of our history, so that's why I like that one. More history, the Trans Resilience Workbook, which is really cool, and if you haven't checked that out, or it's Queer and Transgender Resilience Workbook, I should say, definitely check that out if you are a queer or trans person, because it's so helpful in creating just a positive self-conception, basically, and I really like it. Lots of stuff about history and rights, lots of stuff about, this one, Evolution's Rainbow, is all about how biology factors into LGBT identities, and it's really cool. Delusions of Gender, that's the idea about different studies that are done being men's brains do this and women's brains do that. How they are a little bit, how the studies can often be done in a way that leads to inaccurate results. So that's a really interesting one. This one I just got, and I'm kind of enjoying it a lot. How to Understand Your Gender. And it's a book that's specifically for gender diverse people. And it's, instead of most books, I think, about gender identity sort of provide a defense, and this is much more about forget about defending yourself for a minute and just play with it and see what happens, and I really enjoy it. This is an important book that I'm still working my way through because it's really dense, but it's really good. Black on Both Sides. It's by Riley Snorton. Captive Genders I just got as well, and this is all about trans people who are incarcerated. This is a new edition, and I'm just getting through it, and it's really interesting. It's actually pretty easy to read because it's mostly just people's stories, but they're stories that we need to be paying attention to. Then, of course, Sarah McBride's book, Skylar Kurgel's book, my friend Lawrence Richardson's book, Neo Sanja's book, more biographies. This one just came out fairly recently, and it's really important. Cultivating Pride and Joy with Families in Transition by Elijah Neely, who is a pastor and also a doctor, and very, very cool. So, again, if you're working with children and youth, you got to get this guy. Transgender Teen, of course, is the other one that you really have to get. And Transgender Teen is the sequel to the Transgender Child, and they're both really, really important. And then Beyond Magenta, which is stories from gender diverse youth, and then lots of kids books. And yeah, that's about it. And then these ones are these are my kids books from when I was growing up, so gotta have those in there. So yeah, that's basically it. So I hope that was enjoyable. I hope that you maybe saw a couple of books that you want to put on your to-read list. Yeah, this was really fun. I'm glad that we got to do it. And if you have any questions about any of the books or about my book or anything that's happening, and most especially if you're interested in doing a live event on either Friday or Saturday, put a comment down below so that I know and I can plan one. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.